The figure of Lilith carries with it an aura of mystery and rebellion, something not found in any other mythological character. Her story begins in ancient times, within the civilizations of Sumeria and Babylon, even before the great prophets and divine figures of the Abrahamic world took shape. Imagine a time when rituals and beliefs were still being molded, and figures like Yahweh and the angels were not yet known. Lilith appears as a primordial force, a symbol of power and autonomy that, over the centuries, has been reinterpreted in various ways, but always carries this mysterious and, for many, frightening essence. To better understand the impact of this primal presence, consider that Lilith was like a whisper in the earliest mythologies, a shadow in culture that grew and transformed as empires changed. The idea of a powerful and untamed female figure was already intriguing for the Sumerian and Babylonian civilizations, which were in constant contact with nature and the mysteries of the world. In texts and stories from that era, she was depicted not merely as a being, but almost as an energy, something beyond rational comprehension, embodying what was feared like the unknown in dark nights. The figure of Lilith, unlike other deities or demons, was not limited to a single interpretation. In the oldest records, she is represented as the Lady of the Night, connected to the wind and the desert, places where humans felt vulnerable. We can think of her as a reflection of the fears of the societies that created her, a being who dwelled in the shadows and moved through darkness. It was precisely this uncertainty about what she was, a demon, a goddess, or something in between, that made her even more fascinating. In other words, Lilith emerged in the collective imagination as an unclassifiable force, a manifestation of humanity's deepest uncertainties and fears. And over time, with the spread of Abrahamic cultures and new religious ideas, this image of Lilith transformed, but never completely disappeared. She remains alive in texts and legends, always lurking, representing a primal force that predates the gods of these traditions. Lilith, in a way, continues to be a link between what is divine and what is demonic, challenging categorization and taking on complex roles, which only increases interest and curiosity about this enigmatic figure. The evolution of Lilith over the centuries is, without a doubt, one of the most intriguing aspects of this mythical figure. From an independent deity, and even a respected one in some cultures, she was gradually transformed into a controversial figure, the first wife of Adam, who, by refusing to submit to him, was banished from paradise. This simple act of rebellion not only defined her reputation in later traditions, but also laid the foundation for an image that unites power, autonomy, and danger. We might say that Lilith symbolizes the force of female insubordination in a world that often saw the role of women as limited. As Jewish traditions became more established, the figure of Lilith gained new layers, evolving from Adam's equal partner to a seductive and destructive demon associated with child death and forbidden desires. It was as if, over time, each society that encountered her projected its own fears and insecurities onto her. Imagine that at one point, Lilith came to represent the dangers of female sexuality and the fear of the unknown. She not only challenged the established order, but also touched on deep taboos by refusing to accept the role assigned to her, choosing freedom even if it meant exile. In the 20th century, with the rise of feminist movements, Lilith was rediscovered and reinterpreted, this time as a symbol of female resistance. This modern reclaiming of Lilith's image shows how she has adapted over time, always retaining her essence. She thus becomes an inspiration for women who wish to defy norms and assert themselves in a society that is often patriarchal. This modern Lilith becomes almost a heroine for those who seek autonomy and inner strength, serving as an example that women do not need to yield to what society expects of them. Looking at her trajectory, we see a character who transcends any label, someone who has always resisted being completely understood or dominated. Lilith, over the centuries, has never lost her identity and continues to inspire and challenge people to this day. She is a constant reminder that some stories never fully disappear, but instead transform to remain relevant with each generation. Lilith gains a new dimension upon entering Jewish mystical traditions, where her presence becomes even more complex and enigmatic. In rabbinic mysticism, she is not only a symbol of rebellion, but a figure with hidden and profound meanings, connected to the mysteries of creation and sin. In certain texts, Lilith appears as a being who lies between the human and the supernatural, linked to the world of dreams and temptations. In the Zohar, the central work of Kabbalah, she represents hidden forces that try to divert the faithful from the path of purity. It is almost as if she were a shadow constantly reminding us of the temptations and dangers of the unseen world. The figure of Lilith in Jewish mysticism also carries a strong connection to the concept of duality. She is seen as a feminine counterpart to divine forces, someone who, by her very nature, balances creation and represents the hidden face of universal energies. For many Kabbalists, Lilith embodies necessary aspects of existence that must be acknowledged, even if avoided. Here, she is a lesson on the risks of ignoring our own impulses and desires. In an interesting example, some mystical practices included using specific amulets and prayers to ward off Lilith's influence, both a practical and spiritual measure to protect families from her advances. However, Lilith is not only a threat in Jewish mysticism, she also becomes a figure to be understood and respected. Rabbinic tradition develops an understanding that, although Lilith represents negative forces, she also teaches important lessons about free will and moral choices. Her presence in Jewish legends acts as a constant reminder that evil and temptation are part of life, but that, with knowledge and preparation, we can resist. Protective amulets were frequently used, especially in ceremonies involving pregnant women or newborns, reflecting the fear and respect that Lilith inspired. Lilith, in the context of Jewish mysticism, is thus a multifaceted figure who challenges not only the faithful to understand the spiritual world, but also to confront the mysteries within the human heart. She continues to serve as a reminder that the divine and the profane are intertwined, and that knowledge of hidden mysteries brings both power and responsibility. The Talmudic literature offers a unique perspective on Lilith, where she emerges as a figure shrouded in mystery and specific powers. In the Babylonian Talmud, Lilith appears in stories and teachings that associate her with mystical phenomena and a constant threat to health and well-being, especially for women and children. She is depicted as a disturbing presence, someone better kept at a distance. Some rabbinic traditions describe Lilith as a creature who challenges norms and threatens family balance, particularly in critical moments such as childbirth and infant growth. Her figure, therefore, blends with the fears that permeated ancient society, serving as a warning for the invisible dangers of daily life. An interesting example is how the Talmud describes specific rituals to keep Lilith away, such as amulets and incantations. The rabbis recognized her power and created protective measures that included prayers and artifacts. In one of these descriptions, it is mentioned that mothers should be careful not to leave a baby alone, as Lilith might attempt to steal the child's soul. This belief reflects a view that, besides being an untamed spirit, Lilith possessed nefarious intentions and the ability to influence the human world, especially at life's most vulnerable moments. These rituals, still studied today, underscore the importance of understanding and containing the untamed forces present in the mystical universe. The Talmud also mentions a concept of punishment related to Lilith, highlighting that, according to some teachings, certain female traits were given by her. For example, the growth of women's hair is associated with Lilith, seen as a mark of her original rebellion and a reminder of the price of independence. These details underline how Lilith is not only a mythical figure, but also a moral lesson, representing the consequences of choices that challenge established order. The rabbis used these stories to instill values of discipline and purity, associating Lilith with the consequences of straying from religious precepts. Throughout Talmudic texts, Lilith becomes an almost constant presence, someone who, even at a distance, influences the behavior and beliefs of the faithful. She is a figure that evokes both fear and fascination, as she represents the darkest side of human nature. In the end, Talmudic literature offers us a portrayal of Lilith as a complex entity, an essential part of understanding the spiritual forces that shape the invisible world. Lilith's cultural impact spans generations and extends beyond religious boundaries, making her one of the most multifaceted mythological figures. In various cultures, Lilith is associated with the night, mystery, and danger, especially for families. Amulets, prayers, and even specific chants were developed to protect mothers and children from her influence, especially during vulnerable periods like just after birth. Her association with these delicate moments made her a kind of negative guardian, who, although feared, reinforces the importance of spiritual protection and caution. Furthermore, Lilith is seen as an archetype of the independent and autonomous woman, a representation that is growing in contemporary popular culture. In books, movies, and series, she often appears as a strong female character, someone who challenged norms and refused to be subdued. In many circles, especially feminist ones, Lilith has come to symbolize female resistance against roles imposed by society. We could say that she is, for these women, a figure of inspiration, a reminder that female strength and determination have ancient roots that go back to the deepest legends of humanity. On the other hand, Lilith's image has also been appropriated in various modern mystical practices, such as witchcraft and occultism, where she is revered as a goddess of feminine power. For many practitioners, she symbolizes the ability to live according to one's own rules without fear of reprisal. These followers see in Lilith a spiritual mentor who teaches the importance of honoring one's essence and personal freedom. It is as if she represents a side of spirituality that embraces the shadow and the unknown, reminding us that self-knowledge includes confronting our own fears and limitations. Even in mainstream culture, her image remains alive and resonant. Lilith is reimagined in various forms, from comic books to video games, always carrying with her this duality of strength and mystery. She invites us to reflect on social constraints and the role of women in society, showing that female power is not something new but rather a timeless force. This symbolism transcends mythology and makes us question how we interpret the role of female figures in history and culture. Now that you've immersed yourself in this fascinating story of Lilith, it's worth reflecting. What forces do you allow to influence your life? What does this narrative of independence, resilience, and mystery have to do with what you seek? Lilith reminds us that we can always question our surroundings and perhaps find the power to break barriers and take control of our journey. So, do you think you have a bit of Lilith in you as well? How about exploring this more deeply, allowing yourself to grow and go beyond the ordinary? Share your thoughts, questions, or anything else that intrigued you about this story in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and activate notifications so you won't miss the next content. Let's keep discovering together the power of myths and what they can teach us about life.